This white one?
Yeah.
I think it might actually be.
It does. I noticed that when she was in another view on it, and I said, how come it's
Let me look at it on my,
when she had it zoomed out, zoomed in?
let's see, let me inspect it here. It might have an angled, it does, it has an angled face on it.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah, so it actually does lean back, so good eye. Yeah, and that's, you know, there's, so like he was saying, if you hit the F key, then it gets, you know, you can see all this. And we're going to cover some of these other cool little lights out stuff and things like that. There you can see it. So it got rid of everything, all the borders, and put full screen. So, and then you hit it again and it'll come back. So I am going to select another picture here. And I want to do, let's go with this one. All right. So let's look at this picture for a second. And I want to talk to you about using the brush here, the adjustment brush. So it's up in the upper right-hand corner. It's that bar going across there. It's the thing that looks like a little paintbrush. So if you click on that, it'll open a panel. So go ahead and do that. And what happens is I want you to notice everything is zeroed out on here. And then at the bottom, you will see, it says erase. You'll see the size. This controls the brush size. The next one controls the feather size, the flow size, and then the density. I tend to use flow or flow and density. You can change, you know, but I tend to use flow like either at 100% generally, and then I can reduce it later. But you can also say, oh, I want to do only half. You can dial that in at this point. And I would go ahead, if you know you don't want to apply whatever you're going to apply in these sliders, you can go ahead and size your brush now. You can adjust your flow and density now and your feather now. Because once you start painting, you can't undo it without just starting over with that brush. And there's also something down here called the auto mask. And right here. And so that is not checked right now. Let me explain to you what auto mask is if you don't know. If I were to want to paint, we'll say this side of this boat, and I want to make sure that I don't go color outside the lines, I can click on auto mask, put a check mark in here, and if I move my cursor, my paintbrush cursor over this, it should stay as long as I keep my brush tool. Let me move the brush over here so you can see it. See that plus sign in there? As long as I keep that plus sign inside the boat side, it should make a nice, pretty, sharp edge so that it doesn't feather next to that. It stays in the lines, so it colors within the lines. Now that's a perfect situation right there that it would do very well, and I will demonstrate that here in a minute. I want to tell you right now that I tend to use it more as an erase function and not as a paint in function. And the reason for that is I find that when I'm painting in with the auto mask checked, that I get some artifacting happen that I don't want, and it really will, and sometimes I don't even notice it until I'm totally done with my edit. I'm in Photoshop doing it. I see that it's got an issue, and I don't like it, and so now I've got a mess going on. So I try not to do that, and I don't know if I can show you the artifacting, especially on this big screen, but I tend to use it, pardon me, to erase, because it does a much better job for some reason on the erase mode. But let's get into this real quick so we can see. If you look at the top, you'll see it says new. And since we haven't even made a brush, yeah, it's new. But let's go ahead, and I'm going to look at this boat, and I'm going to say, you know, there's a lot of shading down in here, so I got shadows happening. I want to paint this a little lighter inside the boat. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click, we'll say here at the front of the boat, and I'm just going to start painting in the area that I want to work in. Now, you see nothing happening because there is nothing dialed in over here. So now I can say, all right, I made some strokes on there. It's not right maybe, but I can kind of see where I'm going. So I'm going to pull up, say, or down. I wanted to go up. Pull up my exposure just a little bit. And maybe I want to adjust my shadows up. And we'll say maybe I wanted to, you know, shadows tend to be a little blue, so maybe I want to correct for the blues, so I'm going to warm it up a little bit. And now, okay, so I'm seeing that it's some good stuff is happening, but I want to see where have I actually put my paint strokes. If I hover over this pin, it will show where I've painted in red. But as I move off of the pin, you can see it goes away. If you wanted to continue to see that overlay, you can come down here to the bottom and check this box. And now it'll stay on there if you want it to. And I'll go ahead and say, well, I wanted to paint some more here. And this, I'm really sloppy painting with this mouse because I'm doing it left-handed in a really small little hole on this stand here. So I'm going to paint in all this. Now you can see how much bleed over I have out in the water. So I'm going to turn this off, this red, so we can actually see what it looks like. It helped me know where I've been and where I wanted to go somewhat, but now I can't see my adjustments. So I'm going to click that off. And you can see that it also got lighter down in the water because of the overspray, so to speak, coloring outside the lines. And if you want to see how much change it actually made, down here in the bottom corner, the bottom left corner, is a light switch. So it's on now. I can click it off, and all the adjustments that I just made are not showing up right now. I can click it back on, and you can see the difference. So I am getting some effect in the water. If I like it, all is good. If I don't like it, well, let's consider get rid of it. Okay, so I want to know how can I get rid of that coloring outside the line thing. So I'm going to go ahead and check this box again so I can see where I am. And I want to remove the painting. So I'm going to have your help here, Stan. I would like you to hold the Alt key down for me, please. The Alt key. If you hold the Alt key down, you can see that my brush now has a minus sign in the middle of it instead of a plus. So let go of the Alt key for a second. See, plus, minus. So that's the easiest way to get a minus on your brush, and it's fast because you can go back and forth between erasing and painting in very easily. So now with the minus on my brush, and I have to hold that the whole time because if I release the Alt key, look over here in this paintbrush mode. You'll see nothing is checked here. Auto mask is not checked. We've got 100% on our feather flow, and the size is at 16. But if I click on that Alt key now, you can see this is my erase brush. The word erase is now highlighted. My brush has adjusted to whatever it was last time. My feather is sitting at whatever it was the last time I used it. My flow is at whatever I used last time, and auto mask I must have used the last time I was using the erase tool, so it's also checked. So since that is checked, I'm going to leave the feather alone, and I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to now erase away 100% of this overflow, and as long as I keep that minus sign outside that white area, see how good I am? Not very. It's going to do a pretty good job of snapping to that line. See how clean that is? If I can maneuver that up just a little bit. So get close, but don't go over, because if I go over, it will take it out. And so then I would have to do an undo. So I could do a Control-Z, Stan. Control-Z to get it to go back. Okay, so now I put it back. So now we'll erase again. So if he holds down the Alt key for me, I can continue to paint and remove whatever I want. Now there's another little area up here, and I noticed when if I turn this off, This lost a lot of detail, this little seat area, so I might want to do that also. So I'll turn it back on and come up here and try to stay in the lines with that little minus sign, and it will remove just that area. It's pretty slick, so I like to use it for subtracting, erasing, and more so. So I'll paint, when I'm painting in, I'll go over the line, let it be, and then I'll erase it back. That's my workflow. Maybe it won't be yours. All right, so yes.
When you started painting, you weren't looking at the effect, you just painted it.
I did.
Did you do that is that how you normally do it?
I do, and so he brings up something that I wanted to touch base on. So when I started painting without any effect going on to the picture. And the reason I do that is because now I'm going to say I want to paint this and I want to make this area of the dock darker. So I need to get a new brush and start over, because if I continue on with the brush that's active, which you can see this one is active because it's got the dark spot in the middle, this is going to take and lighten it, but I wanted to darken this, so I need a new brush. So I'm going to come in over here and I'm going to select New. And it gave me a new brush, so it turned off the highlighting down there on the other one I was using. And you'll notice now that everything is back to 0. Well, and that's because that's how I started. I started painting with everything at 0, so the next time I start a new brush, I'm painting again with everything at 0. However, just so you can see what it does if I don't do that, if I would say, well, I know I want to darken this dock down, and if I make the adjustment first, so I come over here and I do my slider down to 0.7, darken it, and now I come over here and paint. First of all, it's painting in pink because I still have that check down at the bottom. So I'm going to go down and uncheck that. Down here, that show mask overlay, I want to get rid of that so I can see what I'm doing. All right, so if I turn this off and on, you will see, look at the dock now, not the other part. It was lighter, and see now it's darker. So, and I also have a little overflow. I got close to the edge. See, I'm not at the edge, but I'm kind of close, but my brush is big enough, it's going into the water too. But so say we did that, and we decided we wanted whatever else we wanted to do that, and I want a new brush now, and I want to work, say, on those barrels. I want to lighten the side of the barrel, so I know I need a new brush. Now, you'll notice before I click to new brush, this is set at minus 0.70. And if I go to new, look, it's still in there. It still thinks I want to start by darkening my exposure, but I really don't. So I'm going to have to reset that. So if I start painting, see, it's darkening it, which is the opposite of what I wanted. So now I have to come over here and make an adjustment. If I would have started with just touching anything with that brush that I was going to adjust and then sliding in my adjustments, I would always start at 0. But if I had, say, let's undo, go and just do a Control-Z, please, Stan. So now it's back, and let's hit delete, actually, just hit delete. Let's get rid of that, or backspace. All right, so let's say I made a few, let's come over here, and I'm going to say I want to bump this up. I have no idea at this point in time how much I need to bump it up, but we're going to say we're going to bump it up, we're going to increase the highlights. I'm going to make this a little wild, and I'm going to make it bluer. So I have a bunch of things going on. Now I'm going to start painting, and it's going to do all those things I just told it to do. And now I want another new brush, and I'm going to work back on the dock again. And so I start painting, and it added blue, and it added all that other garbage, and I have to go and I have to undo all that before I can start doing what I want to do. Does that make sense? Or have I totally lost you? So in order to undo more than one slider at a time, if I come up to the word effect and I click on Alt key, it turns to reset. See that?
Did that wipe out everything?
It only wiped out what was on that last brush and active. So if I wanted to start with a new one, say I went to a new brush, you can see all these, but I haven't touched the screen yet. I haven't touched the screen yet to start painting anything in, and I thought I want to start from 0 again. I want all these, you know, it's got all these on my brush, and I don't want to start out with any of these. I can come up to the word effect, click on Alt, it goes to reset, and then I just tap it, and they'll all go back. Now I can start painting, and nothing's happening, and so then I can come in and make whatever adjustments I want. So, not that I would do this particular adjustment, but you can see what it's doing now. And I think I probably confused you guys all on this, but did I confuse you, or did you understand what I just said? Everybody good?
So, yeah, when you hit that effect, it's just going to be on the one that's active?
We'll figure it out from the video later.
I didn't have anything active at the time. Let's delete that one if you wouldn't mind hitting backspace. Or delete, yeah. See, at the time, I'm going to start another new one. Oh, I reset it, so I can't. Let me just do something down here. And now I'm going to do another. I've got myself all confused. Okay. So let's make some major shifts here. So it's just really obvious that I have some stuff dialed in. And I made, before I ever started brushing on my image, I made the adjustments first. And now I'm going to go touch on the screen or on the image and start brushing it in. And it's going to apply whatever I had brushed in before. Now I can adjust it if I choose to and change it back and tweak it the way I want. But the next time I go get a brand new brush, because I dialed those sliders in prior to touching the image and brushing into the image, it remembers them. So whatever your sliders are set at before you start, as you start painting, that's what it's going to remember the next time. I personally just like everything to be at 0 so I don't have to reset it when I start working. So I prefer keeping mine at 0. So I will just go through and 0 everything out and then paint. Just all you have to do is, if you know I'm going to paint in this one little area right here, this is where I'm going to maybe paint the whole inside of this boat. I'm just going to click one time, then I'll make my adjustments. Or you can paint if you want. If you say, I know I want the whole inside of this boat, I'll just paint it all. Now I'm going to say I want to darken it. So now I'll slide it and I can see where I've darkened it.
But if you go up and hit new for doing another area,
Mm-hmm.
you hit the new and then you hit the reset on the effects there?
Yes. So if I start with a new one and I reset it, and then I paint something in, and then I make the adjustment slider move, and then I want another new brush next time, you can see it's back to 0.
So you don't wipe out what you've been doing, but then you hit the new and then you hit the effects to 0 and out.
If you have, we'll say, if you have this one active, and it says -70 before, so this one is active. And if at this point I hit reset, it'll wipe out what you did to that one. So you can't have an active one. You have to hit the word new before you reset.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? Okay. All right, so let's talk about the gradient tool, which is this little rectangle. Now, a lot of these work, the same. I'm going to pull another picture in here. There are a lot of things that are common between these tools. So they work the same. What I just explained to you about starting with a new one and clicking on the screen first, on the image first before you start moving your sliders around keeps you at 0 all the time when you start new. That holds true for this too. But a gradient tool is going to drop a line, and I'm going to pull one down for you now, and we'll say in this image I want to darken the sky, and if you could see it better you'd say, oh, there's some clouds in there. I think if we darken this down you'll see that they become prettier. So I can click and drag down, and you see 3 lines coming down, and you'll notice if I move my cursor I can swing this to whatever angle I want. I can go back in, and if I put my hand over that center dot, the hand pops up so I know I can pull it down so that I can incorporate the entire sky. That middle line is where, if I hover, you'll see exactly what's affected. So from that middle line up is affected, and then from that middle line down to the next one, it's a quick graduated down to nothing. So down here is nothing's happening below that middle line. And 100% of the stuff is happening up here above that top line. All right? So I pulled this down, and I wanted to pull it so I incorporate the entire sky. But I want to show you one thing that I can do first. So let's delete this, if you wouldn't mind hitting the delete key for me again. Let's pull okay, let's pull another one down, and I'm going to ask Stan to hold the shift key for me. Now, if I pull this down holding the shift key, I can't, no matter how much I move this back and forth, I can't get that angle going. So if you know you want to drop a straight line down, hold the shift key as you're pulling it down. And I'm going to let go of it, so you can let go of the shift key if you want. Now, after the fact, I can see how there's a double-headed arrow as I move out across this middle line. I can now adjust it if I want to. So maybe because I want to get that little bit of sky down here and I want the top of the buildings, is this going to be enough for me? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm going to go back to being at least somewhat straight. If I can get down here, I'm going to pull it back up. And I'm going to grab this center point, and I'm going to pull it down a little lower. But I don't know that I need this much feather area, so this is all the feather area. So I'm going to go, and I'm going to grab this bottom line, and as I approach the bottom line, you'll see that hand come back. That means I can pull these lines closer together. It also moves it up, but that's okay, I can pull it back down. So if I don't need my feather area as far, or if I need it farther, I can make that adjustment by just pulling those lines. And now I'm going to drop this so that I can get all the sky in over here on the right. And now let's start coming over here and let's make some moves. So I'm going to darken the exposure here in the sky. And I could do a variety of things. Maybe I darken the shadows, maybe I drop some highlights a little bit. I'm just doing a variety of things. Maybe I up the whites, that'll give it a little bit of a pop. And it's doing it to everything that's inside that gradient. So all the way down inside the buildings, in the sculpture, in the trees, it's all getting affected. But I only wanted to affect the sky. So can I get rid of it? You can now. I can paint it out of whatever I don't want it in. So I told you this before when we were talking about the brush. It's the same for this one. You'll come up to this upper corner, and we need a brush tool now to do it. So I want the word brush, not the symbol brush. Very important. This is the adjustment brush tool. This is just the brush that stays within the gradient filter right now. And I think it's graduated filter. I called it gradient filter all the time for some reason. So I'm going to click on the word brush. And then it opened this panel down here. Now I have the option to paint in. So right now, the brush has a plus sign in the middle. So I can paint this effect in anywhere I want. So if I wanted to, I could paint it on these guys if I wanted to. Or I can erase by clicking on the word erase. I could also use that shortcut with the Alt key. And I want to use this auto mask. I'm going to show you how this works. So I'm going to come up here, and I want to keep this inside this sculpture, and I'm going to do this quickly as I can, so it's not very accurate. And I'm going to come up to the buildings, and I'm going to go up to this side of the building, and I'm going to be as slow and careful. Slow is good when you're using auto mask. It does a better job if you go slow. Maybe not this slow. But so you would paint in around all the edges using the auto mask. And so I would go ahead and I would go around. I'm just not good at left-handed here. Let's see if I can do it with my bad hand on the right-hand side. And I'm not used to using a mouse like this either. Okay, so I've painted it out there. Whoops, now I'm not any better with my right hand. Oops. Okay. Now, I think it's easier to paint out the main area and get a good job if I turn off the auto mask. So I'm going to come over here and get rid of that to finish painting, because then I don't have to worry about missing areas. Because what it does is it registers, oops, I got out of the line. You don't want to do that. What it does, I did it twice. Can you step me back two?
Back to?
Yeah. Oops. No, cancel that. Well, we lost all of it for some reason. But okay. Let's draw down another one of these things real quick. So I want to erase. So I'm going to go back to the brush. And I want to erase. And I forgot auto mask. See what it does if I don't have auto mask? I'm going to go ahead and I'll just leave that as, because I'll show you how to fix it. But what happens is if I turn this on, this show overlay, and that kind of can help, you can see where you miss. And what it does, it picks up on the color of where you started. And so sometimes it will leave pink areas, which are areas you haven't done, maybe in the clouds, because it's thinking it needs to remove it from the blue. So I would do all this, then I would come over and do this building again. And if you can see in these windows or whatever those vertical lines are, there's still a pink edge to those over there. So sometimes I'll come over then and uncheck auto mask. And now I can get rid of all these missed spots a little bit easier. But along the edge, I would use the auto mask. And it would do a better job of doing that. Now, if I go turn off the auto mask, and I look, I've got this thing that I did an oops on. So I need to paint that back in. If I hold the Alt key, I can come in here. I might want to make my brush smaller. We'll give it a try. I'm painting it in both above and below, but I can erase it now off of the below. So if I hit the Alt key, or let go, rather, I can paint it back out. I should have had the mask on. Okay, I did it again. Hit the Alt key. Okay, now I'll turn the mask on. And I'm in the minus section, yep, so we got it together. And then I can mask this back out and do a better job. The one thing is I took it completely off of this sculpture, but if I were to come over here and a before and after, I'll notice that it actually was darker in the before picture compared to the sky. So when I darkened the sky and then erased the entire treatment from the sculpture, I actually changed the fact that it stood away from the sky as an original. So maybe I wanted to paint something back in. So I can do that. So maybe I want to add some of it back in, but maybe not all of it. So what I could do is hold down the Alt key to get my plus back. I'm going to adjust the flow, so maybe I'm only painting back in like say 50% or in that neighborhood, no auto mask, and then I can go over with one stroke and see how I like it painting it in. And I can go back over it. Now it's full opacity up at the sky, so I don't need to worry about actually affecting it. It's not going to affect it. It's only painting it in on the area that had it removed. So you can add in and subtract, and that's what I'm trying to show you here. And if you don't subtract it, look what happens to the top of that building. So it does change the look, and you never used to be, and they've added this on. It's a really nice benefit to be able to do that. Is there any question about this gradient map or gradient filter? Graduated filter, I'm still saying it wrong. It works really slick on a seascape or something that has a really straight horizon, and then you don't have to paint anything out. But it's nice to be able to paint something out if you don't have a straight line that you're dropping it on. Another use for these is I can go grab a new one, and sometimes it's nice to keep your eye from going off of the page is if you just put a small one at the top. So I can draw down a small one here and then just darken it a little bit, and it sort of acts like a vignette. And I can darken, oops, that is not the one I wanted. Darken the exposure, just a hair. And then you say, well, that's kind of noticeable. That's okay, just pull the feather down on it a little bit, and it will darken the top of the sky. So you can actually keep your eye inside the picture a little bit more if you darken the edges, and this is a nice way to do it using the graduated filter. And you can use it coming up from the bottom if you wanted to darken this one. So you could pull something up. Yep.
I have two things I had. This morning I was actually looking at a YouTube video on this.
Okay.
Halfway down on the right there, it says range mask off.
Yep. We're not talking about range masks today, but yes. Okay. Yeah, we'll have to come back to that.
The question I have is, when you're doing a gradient filter,
Yep.
and you pull it down, the top of it gets dark, and it slowly gets lighter.
Yes.
How do you flip that around so that the bottom part gets dark and it goes lighter to the top?
You start at the bottom and pull it up. But if you're wanting, say you wanted to do the sky and you said, oh, I want to start here and pull it up, you can't do that. With this particular tool, you can't do the middle of an image. You're either going, you could come in here and erase it away from the bottom, but it's, you know, you can pull it up or you can pull it down or you can pull it sideways, but wherever you start pulling, it's always there and it's going to go all the way to the edge.
Okay, that's what I was just wondering how to get that to change. Because I pull them down and then I tried to flip them over, they won't flip.
No, if you just want to strip through the center, I mean, that would be a neat addition for them to add to it, because I have used other softwares that do that, but this one doesn't. Anything else before we move out of graduated filters? Okay, let's talk about the radial filter. That's the circle up here. This circle has a little arrow off the side. This is the radial filter, has no arrow. I'm going to pull in another image. And I'm going to do this as quickly as I can because we're running tight on time here, as always, and I want to get to a few other things. I use this often to make a vignette. I love it for making a vignette because I can place the center of it wherever I want. So the way this works, you can see there's an X on my cursor when I'm in, when I've already clicked on this, so I've already got it. And you can see there's a cross on my cursor. So I'm going to click and drag out an oval. And then I'm going to move it wherever I want it. So we'll say I want it in the middle. And move it over. Now, if I come over here, well, if I hover over this center, you'll see what's being affected. And it's affecting the outside of the vignette or the radial that I just drew. It's showing the outside. That's where I want to be working, so that's good. But look, there's very little that's not being affected. When I hover over that, everything that's red is being affected. So very little is not getting something added to it. So for using it for a vignette, I tend to make this bigger than my image. So I can come out and resize it after I've already stopped. So I can pull this out by going to these little handles that are on the side. It's a little square, they call them handles. And I can pull these out if I didn't make it bigger before. And I can recenter my dot if I need to by clicking and dragging. And now if I hover over it, you'll see that I have a lot more white area in the center. So that's a good thing. I'm going to keep this on, so I'm going to check this for a second. And I want you to see there's also a slider over here called feather. It's right now it's set at 50, and as I move it up to 100, you can see it starting to get less and less white area. It's encroaching, it's softening, it's elongating the amount of area that's feathered, and so it's moving in and taking over more. It's not adding a ton, but it is putting something on all but this very center white area. Now, if you bring the feather all the way to 0, you also see what it does, and it puts a hard edge on it. So, you know, if you wanted a hard edge on one, that's how you do it. So, but I'll leave it at the factory default, and you can go less if you want it to be. And so I'm going to turn this off now so I can see what I'm doing, and I'm going to add a vignette to darken it. So I'm just going to pull this down ever so slightly, maybe about 1/4 of a stop, and it'll darken it a little. You can go more, you could go half a stop, you could go a lot if you wanted it to be a heavy vignette. So you can decide what you want it to look like. And we'll leave it at that for right now because we're on a screen, so it shows a little different than it would on my screen on my computer. But now what if I wanted to lighten the center or do something else to the center? Let's make a new one. I'm going to click New. I'm going to pull out another one. But what if we didn't want an oval? We wanted a circle instead. So if I hold down the Shift key and I pull it out, I pull out a, oops, let's try that again. If I hold down the Shift key and pull it out, I'm pulling out a perfect circle. It's not cooperating here. Try it one more time. Shift key. Well, there we go. Okay, and then I'll just move it over to the center, and I'll place it here. Now it's a circle, and maybe it's not a big enough circle, so if I wanted to enlarge the circle, if I hold the Shift key again, and I click, I can pull it out into a bigger circle. If I let go of the Shift key and I decided I wanted an oval after all, I can let go of the Shift key, and now I can turn it into an oval. And now let's hover over. Okay, so now I told you I wanted to do some work inside the oval, but look, it's still on the outside. So the area that's being affected right now is outside where the pink is. I want it to be inside. So if I go over to this menu over here, it says Invert. So I'm going to check Invert. Now when I come over and hover, then whatever effects I dial in now is happening to inside the circle. So that's what I want. So let's just lighten up the center just a little bit. We'll do that. And maybe we bring down the shadow or bring up the shadows a little bit. And maybe we hit it with some clarity. So we sharpen it up. Maybe we even sharpen it inside there. Oops. So we can sharpen. You'll see there's a lot of different options over here. Dehaze. Now if I turn off my pictures, so again, I can hit the switch, turn it off and on. Here's before, and here's after. So I can't turn off just one of the radials. I have to turn them both off, but you can see what it looks like before and after. I can go ahead if I say if there was something inside here or outside, we'll say we have this effect going on here, but I wanted it to affect some of these branches that are just outside the area that's being affected. That's not a problem. All I have to do is come over to the word brush, again, the word brush, not the brush icon, the word brush, click on it, it opens up this panel. Now, I want to paint in this effect to some more areas, so I don't want to erase it. I want to paint it in, and I'm going to paint it in at 100% flow. So I'm just going to come over here, and I'm going to paint it outside, and I know you can't see where it is, but I'll show you in a minute. So I'm going to paint it out here. Now if I go hover over that dot, you'll see that I painted outside the oval. All right? If I got it somewhere out there that I didn't want it to be, all I have to do is hold the Shift or the Alt key, and then I can say remove it from the area I don't want it. You can check to see if you got it all by hovering over that center dot again. And you can see I erased it from that one piece of pine needles there. So it works much the same. A lot of the criteria is the same over here as it was in the gradient, as it was in the brush tool. The one thing I want to mention real quick is you'll see an A and a B here. You can actually set two different brushes to work. So maybe I wanted a brush that has 100% feather and 100% flow as my A brush. Then I could say, okay, that's A, so now I want to click on B brush, and I want it to be maybe just a 50% feather and a 50%. And so now I can go back to my A brush, and it's the 100%, and then I could just quickly flip over to the B brush, and I got two different brushes that I can grab without redoing the sliders. And then if you had an erase brush, you can have two brushes for the erase tool. And so you would have one, say, set like this, and then maybe you'll set your B brush that you don't want any feather. And so we'll go back to A. It's got 100% feather, and the B has got no feather. So that's some options there. Is there any questions about the radial filter? It's really cool for dropping in light. So we can paint in light too, which is pretty cool. But we don't have a whole lot of time, so I can't show you a whole lot of that. Go ahead.
You know that lower left-hand corner where you have a switch?
Yes?
Next to that over there where it says reset,
Yes?
if you don't like what you've done with the whole picture and you want to reset, you can hit the reset, it'll take you back to before you're messing with it.
Yep.
And, okay.
So if you only want to get rid of one, don't use it because it's going to get rid. If you got 10 up there and you only want to get rid of the last one, do a Control Z. Or if it wasn't the last one, go in and find the one you want, activate it, and hit delete. Because if you hit reset, it's going to reset every single one of them. So you'll be back to nothing. And if you want to close this panel, you can either hit close, you can hit done at the bottom here, or you can go up and just tap back on the icon and it'll go fold back in and go away. All right? I want to show you one thing. I was going to show you the crop tool, but I want to show you this instead. We'll have to do the crop tool next class because I think this is important, and I think it's going to be, you may want to export something between now and the next class, which is next week. So if we wanted to say export this picture, we would go up to the word File, and I'm going to come down to Export. That's one way. You could also, if this left panel was open, you can see, I guess you can't. Oh, if we were in maybe library mode. Yeah, from library mode, you can do it in the left panel. But if you're in Develop, you'll need to go into File and down to Export, which is the top one, not Export with Previous, not Export with Preset, not Export as a catalog for sure. You just want the word Export. It's going to open this window. And in this window, wow, okay. What did I do? Let's try that again, because I didn't want it that big. Export. It'll probably open the same size. Oh, great. Now it's not opening at all. Oh, can you throw it over? We'll fix it, I guess. Yes. Maybe. No, I can't. Can you push it? There we go. So this may not be this wide on your screen. I can make it narrower here. So let's look at what we have here, though. We've got export location, image sizing. I'm going to try to elongate this. I guess I can't. Okay. So let's look at the top here. Where are we going to go with this? Where do you want to, you want to take this picture out of Lightroom, you've edited, it's great, you want to put it on, you want to send it to a friend, you want to print it, you want to do whatever. You need to export it. So we need to tell this where you want to export it to. So you can click on here and you can choose a specific folder. And now we want to choose where the folder is. So I'm going to hit choose, and maybe you want it to be on your desktop. Maybe you want to put it back into a hard drive. It doesn't matter. You decide where you want to put it. I'm going to teach you how to do it size for club. So you're going to have this size for club so you know. So I'm going to make a desktop file. I'm going to select desktop, and I'm going to make a new file folder. So I want to make a new folder. Here's where it is on a PC. On a Mac, it's in the bottom left corner. I'm going to hit new folder. It's going to give me the option to type in a name, and we're going to say, Stan, could you type in Riverbend image? So you can go ahead and do this along with me, if you will. So go ahead and click. So what I did is I hit choose. I forgot to tell you to do this in advance. Let's see if I can move this. So export to a specific folder. Then the folder, I come over here to the word choose. It opens up this file system. I'm going to put it on my desktop. So I clicked desktop. I clicked new folder. Type in the name of the new folder. Riverbend images. Once you have that, you can say select folder or choose, whichever it says on your computer. And it will tell it right here is exactly where it's going to go. So we're good. And then I'm going to go down to file renaming. If you're exporting one thing, you can use a renaming thing. But if you're, say, doing a selection of several, I guess I can't roll it up without pointing. So you can check rename if you want to rename the image, and you can put in the name you want to name it here. We won't go into that real deeply today because we don't have time. I maybe come back to it next time. I want it to say in file settings, image format is JPEG, color space is sRGB. I want my quality to be up to 100, and I usually have the oh, that's oops. I'm going to come down here. To the next one says image sizing. Yes, I want to resize my image, and I want to say width and height. And if yours doesn't say that, if you click on that arrow to the right, you can choose width and height. And in the width, I want to type in 1900. So if Stan would type in 1900 for me. Oops. And on height, I want it to say 1080. And I like to put my resolution, and it needs to say pixels here. I usually keep my resolution at I think that changed.
Should be 1920.
1920, okay, sorry. And this should be 1080 though. Pixels here, and then in the resolution, 125 is what I use. I know it only needs to be about 74. I give it a little leeway, and I put 125. And pixels per square inch. The next one, output sharpening. Sharpen, yes, I do that. You don't have to if you don't want to. I sharpen for screen. You can either do standard or high. And the next one, metadata, I have all metadata. I leave that as is. You can remove the personal information if you want. It's up to you, but it's okay to leave it. Watermarking we aren't going to do here because that requires a little bit of Photoshop. I'm not going to get into that. And do nothing on export. Now, don't do this, but you are ready to export. But I want you to do something first. So we're going to say add. So I'd like you to click add. We're going to make a preset for this. Can you do it over there? If you can click on, oh, you've got a screen over there. Can you push the screen over to me? Okay, so this screen should have popped up. And so we want to name our preset. So I would name this River Bend Resizing. So you can go ahead and type that in. And now we'll go ahead and put it in user presets. I'm fine with that. You could make your own. If you want to custom make one, you could do that by doing a new folder. But we'll go ahead and leave it in user presets. And I'm going to hit create. And you'll see it put River Bend Sizing right there. And so now I could hit export if I wanted. But I want to show you how it works if I cancel out. So if I cancel out now, and I'm going to start this over. So I'm going to come up and I'm going to grab that export screen again. So export. And now you can see this is highlighted. I'm going to click on it, and it's going to put all that information in right over here. So everything is set up for you to do. So if the next time you wanted to not resize, so we'll say we don't want to resize this one, and we exported it full sized. And it's going to do that. But now the next time I wanted to export it sized for Riverbend, if I can click on it, it'll open. And so all I have to do is click on Riverbend Resizing. Oh, and it was, did I have another screen over there that didn't come over? No. Did you have a screen pop up where you could select what you wanted to? I don't know why it didn't resize, you guys. Or maybe it did. I'm in the wrong screen. Let's see. There it is. It did. It went to that. So, okay, we're good. So anyway, all you'd have to do is click that. I'm sorry, I got you messed up there. And then we're ready to export with Riverbend Sizing. It's real easy now. Once you make that, anytime you want to share an image with Riverbend, you just make sure that you click on that before you do the export, and it'll take it right into your folder. You may want to get in there and rename them all, but it's this right size. Yes?
Right-click on the folder to come up to the export.
So if I write, oh, okay.
See it right down there, fourth one.
Oh, yeah, so that's another place. I've obviously never used it. So I can also do it right here. So export there, and then I'll get that screen to open back up. But suppose we wanted one of these other pictures. Cancel. Let's just go down to one of these, this one. We'll just grab this one. And I wanted to export this for Club too, so I will right-click, so I'll try that again. Go down to Export. But now it opens up, and I can actually do, since the last one I exported was going into Club Sizing, I can go ahead and just click Export with Previous, and it'll attach the same information to it. Okay? Does that make sense? Is there any questions? We got through most everything that I wanted to tonight. I really wanted to show you that. I'm sorry we didn't get into cropping, but I think that's one that if you wanted to crop something, you can go up to the cropping tool and probably figure out the bulk of it, but I will cover it next class, okay? Because we need to pack up and go now. So thanks for coming. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask me as you're packing up. I'll turn on the lights. And we will be back here a week from tomorrow. I believe it's a Tuesday next week. Is it Wednesday? It's Wednesday. Sorry. So next Wednesday.